Oh, there we go. That's much better. This week on the Behavioral Logic podcast, I'm going to start reading The Republic of Plato, Book One. Why? Good question. So, I have heard so many philosophy fan bros. They don't shut up about Plato. Apparently, all philosophy is are just footnotes to Plato. Uh, so I thought, well, maybe I should check it out. And his arguably most famous work is The Republic. So I read the first book and was just immediately struck by how dumb it was. It just bad, not bad, but like malevolent. And I guess if you consider it a work of pure rhetoric, I get it. It's just fallacy after fallacy until you just want to agree with him so he'll shut up. But it surprised me, so I thought, well, maybe I'll share the experience with others. And if you are interested in reading through it, now you get to hear it. You get to hear me read it, and include all of my sarcastic comments. So I'm going to read through book one. And as I go, just sort of interject thoughts, questions, comments, that sort of thing as I see fit. If anybody would like to correct me uh, on something that I missed or what I'm getting wrong, please do. I'm here to learn too. This is surprising how much I hated it, um, but hopefully I'll make a good point. You'll see what I'm talking about. If you want to follow along at home, boys and girls, I am using the Project Gutenberg version, and I included a link to that in the description. It is translated by Benjamin Jowett, 1817 to 1893. All right, so this book started with a summary. I think I want to go through it because I think it represents sort of the standard thoughts on this, and it is very complimentary. So, um, here's a summary from the Gutenberg version. The Republic of Plato, by Plato, is a philosophical dialogue written in the late 4th century BC. This seminal work explores the nature of justice, the ideal state, and the role of the philosopher king, serving as a foundational text for Western political theory and philosophy. The discussion unfolds through the character of Socrates as he engages with various interlocutors on profound questions about morality, governance, and the essence of a good life. The beginning of the Republic sets the stage for a rich exploration of justice, introduced during a conversation instigated by Cephalus, an elderly man reflecting on wealth and virtue. The dialogue quickly transitions into a debate among Socrates and other characters such as Polemarchus and Thrasymachus concerning the definition and implications of justice. Socrates challenges the prevailing notions of morality, such as the idea that might makes right, and sets up the groundwork for arguing that justice is inherently linked to the well being of the state and the fulfillment of individual virtue. Through this intricate philosophical discourse, the opening portion entices the reader into the depths of Plato's vision of an ideal society and the philosophical inquiries that will follow. Yeah, that's pretty pretty flattering. I I do want to pick out a few things in here talking about the philosopher king. I don't think anybody disagrees with this, but the general idea is Plato is arguing that philosophers should be in charge. And oh my gosh, he just happens to be a philosopher. Always felt a little self-serving to me, but maybe not. I will give him a chance. And let's see. So I wrote, here is my summary uh, that I wrote, apparently, maybe after drinking a little. It says Socrates instigates a discussion exploring the question of justice. Very little seems to have been accomplished. If I had to declare a thesis of this book, it would be Socrates' assertion that, quote, rulers always have their constituents' best interest at heart, i.e., any reports of corruption are fake news. Uh, I'm going to, I guess if I had one thesis for this, I'm going to argue that this is an extremely authoritarian piece that says whoever is in charge is right. And if you don't think they're right, you're the one who's wrong. I found a quote here. It says, there is no one in any rule who, insofar as he is a ruler, considers or enjoins what is for his own interest, but always what is for the interest of his subject or suitable to his art. I think that encapsulates at least book one. I have not read the other books. I kind of had my fill. This is interesting to people. We'll go through them all, but let's get started. So, book one. Socrates, who is the narrator, Cephalus, Glaucon, Thrasymachus, Erymanthus, Cleitophon, and Polemarchus are our characters. The scene is laid in the house of Cephalus at the Piraeus, and the whole dialogue is narrated by Socrates the day after it actually took place to Timaeus, Hermocrates, Critias, and a nameless person who were introduced in the Timaeus. Okay, I'm going to stop for a sec. First, the quick things. The Piraeus is a port city in Athens, and I'm still a little confused by this, so let's go over it. So Plato wrote this, but Plato is not in it. His self-insert is Socrates, and Socrates is pretty much talking in first person. So it sort of feels like Plato, but so then Socrates is telling Timaeus, Hermocrates, and Critias, and a nameless person, about a discussion that he had previously with some other people. So it's like Plato writing Socrates telling people about a discussion he had with other people. Very convoluted. There seems to be a lot of, I don't know, maybe the confusion is just part of the. Let's get back to it. Here's the beginning. I went down yesterday to the Piraeus with Glaucon and son of Ariston, that I might offer up my prayers to the goddess, and also because I wanted to see in what manner they would celebrate the festival, which was a new thing. I was delighted with the procession of the inhabitants, but that of the Thracians was equally, if not more, beautiful. When we had finished our prayers and viewed the spectacle, we turned in the direction of the city, and at that instant Polemarchus, the son of Cephalus, chanced to catch a sight of us from a distance as we were starting on our way home, and told his servant to run and bid us to wait for him. The servant took hold of me by the cloak behind and said, Polemarchus desires you to wait. Real quick, I thought this was really cool. This was written 300 to 400 years before Jesus. And the description of the religious festival, it felt normal. I mean, I guess religious festivals have been pretty much the same since time immemorial. And now he's sort of being a bit of accosted by the servant of Polemarchus. I turned around and asked him where his master was. There he is, said the youth, coming after you, if only you will wait. Certainly we will, said Glaucon. And in a few minutes Polemarchus appeared, and with him Erymanthus, Glaucon's brother, Niceratus, the son of Nicias, and several others who had been in the procession. Polemarchus said to me, I perceive, Socrates, that you and your companion are already on your way to the city. We're not far wrong, I said. But do you see, he rejoined, how many we are? Of course. And are you stronger than all these? For if not, you will have to remain where you are. I think they're threatening him with violence at this point. But may there not be the alternative, I said, that we may persuade you to let us go? But can you persuade us if we refuse to listen to you? He said. Certainly not, replied Glaucon. Then we are not going to listen. Of that you may be assured. Erymanthus added, has no one told you of the torch race on horseback in honor of the goddess which will take place in the evening? With horses, I replied. That is a novelty. Will horsemen carry torches and pass them one to another during the race? Um, I guess they're past threats of violence now. So they're talking about horses. Isn't that nice? Yes, said Polemarchus. And not only so, but a festival will be celebrated at night, which you certainly ought to see. Let us rise soon after supper and see this festival. There will be a gathering of young men, and we will have a good talk. Stay then. Do not be perverse. I mean, I'm talking about Plato being perverse. Very good, I replied. Accordingly, we went with Polemarchus to his house, and there we found his brothers, Lysias and Euthydemus. Nope, Euthydemus. And with them Thrasymachus the Chalcedonian, Carminides the Panian, and Cleitophon, the son of Aristonymus. Oh, I should have practiced these names better. There too was Cephalus, the father of Polemarchus, whom I had not seen for a long time, and I thought him very much aged. He was seated on a cushioned chair, and had a garland on his head, for he had been sacrificing in the court, and there were some other chairs in the room arranged in a semicircle, upon which we sat down by him. He saluted me eagerly. Then he said, you don't come to see me, Socrates, as often as you ought. If I were still able to go and see you, I would not ask you to come to me. But at my age I can hardly get to the city, and therefore you should come oftener to the Piraeus. Let me tell you that the more the pleasures of the body fade away, the greater to me is the pleasure and charm of conversation. Do not then deny my request, but make our house your resort, and keep company with these young men. We are old friends. You will be quite at home with us. I replied, there is nothing for which my part I like better, Cephalus, than conversing with aged men. For I regard them as travelers who have gone a journey which I too may have to go, and of whom I ought to inquire whether the way is smooth and easy, or rugged and difficult. And there is a question which I should like to ask of you who have arrived at the time which the poets call the threshold of old age. Is life harder towards the end, or what report do you give of it? I I do like this. Socrates is really starting to suck up to the old people here, and being an old person myself, I'm not entirely against it. All right, next. I will tell you, Socrates, he said, what my own feeling is. Men of my age flock together. Are we birds of a feather, as the old proverb says? And at our meetings the tale of my acquaintance commonly is, I cannot eat, I cannot drink. The pleasures of youth and love are fled away. There was a good time once, but now that is gone, and life is no longer life. Some complain of the slights which are put upon them by relations, and they will tell you sadly of how many evils their old age is the cause. But to me, Socrates, these complainers seem to blame that which is not really at fault. For if old age were the cause, I too being old, and every other old man, would have felt as they do. But this is not my own experience, nor that of others whom I have known. How well I remember the aged poet Sophocles, when in answer to the question, how does love suit with age? Sophocles, are you still the man you were? Peace, he replied, most gladly I have escaped the thing of which you speak. I feel as if I have escaped from a mad and furious master. I you know what, I'm gonna stop right here. I'm really loving this so far. And again, being an old man, the I cannot eat part, everything else about getting old I can work with, but not being able to eat like I used to sucks. I love eating, and now if I eat a little too much, I'm just miserable. It's horrible. And then he's talking about, well, they're talking about sex. And how his desire has waned. I feel as if I had escaped from a mad and furious master. Yeah, must be nice, huh? Um, all right, back to it. We're hearing an old man complain. Lovely. His words have often occurred to my mind since, and they seem as good to me now as at the time when he uttered them. For certainly old age has a great sense of calm and freedom. When the passions relax their hold, then, as Sophocles says, we are freed from the grasp of not one mad master only, but many. The truth is, Socrates, that these regrets and also these complaints about relations are to be attributed to the same cause, which is not old age, but men's characters and tempers. For he who is of a calm and happy nature will hardly feel the pressure of age, but to him who is of an opposite disposition, youth and age are equally a burden. Hmm. They are really, I guess we're introducing a characters here, or just lulling us um, into believing that there is no thesis. It's just a lovely little story, and it is. I listened in admiration, and wanting to draw him out that he might go on. Yes, Cephalus, I said, but I rather suspect that people in general are not convinced by you when you speak thus. They think that old age sits lightly upon you, not because of your happy disposition, but because you are rich, and wealth is known to be a great comforter. You are right, he replied. They are not convinced, and there is something in what they say, not, however, so much as they imagine. I might answer them as Themistocles answered the Seriphian who was abusing him, and saying that he was famous not for his own merits, but because he was an Athenian. If you had been a native of my country, or I of yours, neither of us would have been famous. And to those who are not rich and are impatient of old age, the same reply may be made. For to the good poor man old age cannot be a light burden, nor can a bad rich man ever have peace with himself. May I ask, Cephalus, whether your fortune was for the most part inherited or acquired? By you. Acquired, Socrates. Do you want to know how much I acquired? In the art of making money, I've been midway between my father and grandfather, for my grandfather, whose name I bear, doubled and trebled the value of his patrimony, that which he inherited being much what I possess now. But my father, Lysanias, reduced the property below what it is at present, and I shall be satisfied if I leave these to my sons, not less, but a little more than I receive. So, Cephalus is yeah, it's the small loan of $1 million. His grandfather was rich. His father lost a lot of it, but then, he gained it back. Hardly rising from poverty. But we do see these are somewhat privileged folks. That was why I asked you the question, I replied, because I see that you are indifferent about money, which is a characteristic rather of those who have inherited their fortunes, rather than those who have acquired them. The makers of fortunes have a second love of money as a creation of their own, resembling the affection of authors for their own poems. Place. Stuff around, sir. Right. Um, or of parents for their children. Besides that natural love of it, for the sake and use and profit which is common to them and all men. And hence they are very bad company, for they can talk about nothing but the praises of wealth. That is true, he said. Yes, that is true. But may I ask another question? What do you consider to be the greatest blessing which you have reaped from your wealth? One, he said, of which I could not expect easily to convince others. For let me tell you, Socrates, that when a man thinks himself to be near death, fears and cares enter into his mind which he never had before. The tales of a world below, and the punishment which is extracted there of deeds done here, were once a laughing matter to him, but now he is tormented with the thought that they may be true, either from the weakness of age or because he is now drawing nearer to that other place. He has a clearer view of things. Suspicions and alarms crowd thickly upon him, and he begins to reflect and consider what wrongs he has done to others. And when he finds that the sum of his transgressions is great, he will many a time, like a child, start up in his sleep for fear, and he is filled with dark forebodings. But to him who is conscious of no sin, sweet hope, as Pindar charmingly says, is the kind nurse of his age. So I thought that was very interesting because, we think about the belief of hell, heaven and hell today as sort of this Western religion, but these were, polytheistic Greeks. And again, sort of surprising the similarity in religious tone and practice uh, thousands of years ago and in a very different religion. Hope, he says, cherishes the soul of him who lives in justice and holiness, and is the nurse of his age and the companion of his journey. Hope which is mightiest to sway the restless soul of man. How admirable are his words! And the great blessing of riches, I do not say to every man, but to a good man, is, that he has had no occasion to deceive or defraud others, either intentionally or unintentionally. And when he departs to the world below, he is not of any apprehension about offerings due to the gods or debts which he owes to men. Now, to this peace of mind the possession of wealth greatly contributes, and therefore I say that, setting one thing against another, one of the many advantages which wealth has to give to a man of sense, this is, in my opinion, the greatest. Well said. Well said, said Cephalus. I replied, but as concerning justice, what is it? Ah, finally, we get to the question. Um, what is justice? Cephalus, is he feeling guilty? Is he's contemplating, did I give more than I took? And I think that's a very nice kind of lead into it. Socrates continues, to speak the truth and to pay your debts, no more than this, and even to this are there not exceptions? Suppose that a friend, when in his right mind, has deposited alms with me, and he asks for them when he is not in his right mind, ought I give them back to him? No one would say that I ought, or that I should be right in doing so, any more than they would say that I ought always to speak the truth to one who is in his condition. You are quite right, he replied. Hey, there's a lot of head nodding and agreement in this. Ah, yes, so wise. You're gonna see that. You're gonna get real sick of that. But then I said, speaking the truth and paying your debts is not a correct definition of justice. Quite correct, Socrates. If Simonides is to be believed, said Polemarchus, interposing. I fear, said Cephalus, that I must go now, for I have to look after the sacrifices, and I hand over the argument to Polemarchus company. Is not Polemarchus your heir? I said. To be sure, he answered, and went away laughing to the sacrifices. Tell me then, O thou heir of the argument, what did Simonides say, and according to you truly say, about justice? He said that the repayment of a debt is just, and in saying so, he appears to me to be right. I should be sorry to doubt the word of such a wise and inspired man. But his meaning, though probably clear to you, is the reverse of clear to me. For certainly he does not mean, as we were just now saying, that I ought to return a deposit of arms or of anything else to one who asks for it when he is not in his right senses, and yet a deposit cannot be denied to a debt. True. Then when the person who asks me is not in his right mind, I am by no means to make the return? I mean, so you're holding, basically, you're holding your friend's guns. All right. And I'm wondering, to me, why are you doing that in the first place? I'm wondering if there's a history of acting rationally. So it's like, why don't I hold on to these? So I I guess I'm assuming that if the whole point was to hold on to them in order to protect him, then well, that wouldn't even make it if he just came to you and you gave him back. It has nothing to do with possession. It has to do with the agreement of, hey, I'm going to keep these safe for you. So I'm not really sure if I see the big problem that Socrates or Plato has with this, but it's kind of a gotcha. I'm not really impressed with it, but let us continue. Certainly not. When Simonides said that the repayment of a debt was justice, he did not mean to include that case. Certainly not, for he thinks that a friend ought always to do good to a friend and never evil. You mean that the return of a deposit of gold, which is to be which is to the injury of the receiver if the two parties are friends, is not the repayment of a debt. That is what you would imagine him to say? Yes. And are enemies also to receive what we owe them? To be sure, he said. They are to receive what we owe them, and an enemy, as I take it, owes to an enemy that which is due or proper of him. That is to say, evil. Simonides then, after the manner of poets, would seem to have spoken darkly of the nature of justice, for he really meant to say that justice is giving to each man what is proper to him, and this he termed a debt. That must have been his meaning, he said. Little? By heaven, I replied, and if we asked him what due or proper thing is given by medicine, and to whom, what answer do you think that he would make to us? He would surely reply that medicine gives drugs and meat and drink to human bodies. And what due or proper thing is given by cookery, and to what? Seasoning to food. And what is that which justice gives, and to whom? If Socrates, we are If, Socrates, we are to be guided at all by the analogy of the preceding instances, then justice is the art which gives good to friends and evil to enemies. That is his meaning, then. I think so. And who is best able to do good to his friends and evil to his enemies in time of sickness, position, or when they are on a voyage amid the perils of the sea? The pilot. And in what sort of actions, or with a view to what result, is the just man most able to do harm to his enemy and good to his friend? In going to war against the one and making alliances with the other. But when a man is well, my dear Polemarchus, there is no need of a physician. No, and he who is not on a voyage has no need of a pilot. Nope. Then in time of peace justice will be of no use. I am very far from thinking so. You think that justice may be of use in peace as well as in war? Yes. Like husbandry for the acquisition of corn? Yes. Or like shoemaking for the acquisition of shoes? That is what you mean? Yes. And what similar use or power of acquisition has justice in time of peace? In contracts, Socrates, justice is of use. And by contracts, partnerships. Exactly. But is the just man or the skillful player a more useful and better partner at a game of drafts? Drafts as checkers. The skillful player. And in the laying of bricks and stones, is the just man a more useful or better partner than the builder? Well, quite reverse. Then in what sort of partnership is the just man a better partner than the harp player? As in playing the harp player is certainly a better partner than the just man. In a money partnership. Yes, Polemarchus, but surely not in the use of money, for you do not want a just man to be your counselor in the purchase or sale of a horse. A man who is knowing about horses would be better for that, would he not? Certainly. And when you want to buy a ship, the shipwright or the pilot would be better. True. That Then what is that joint use of silver or gold in which the just man is to be preferred when you want a deposit to be kept safely? You mean when money is not wanted, but allowed to lie. Precisely. That is to say, justice is useful when money is useless. That is the inference. And when you want to keep a pruning hook safe, then justice is useful to the individual and the state. But when you want to use it, then the art of the vine dresser. Clearly. Oh man, this is meandering. There is a lot. I'm going to take a little break here. There's definitely a lot of rhetorical questions. Surely the doctor is better for medicine than the shipwright. And then he forces the person to answer. I kind of have a I've started a policy where I refuse to answer rhetorical questions. Um, Look, getting me, making your discussion partner your puppet and forcing them to nod or shake their head as you command. I don't feel these are great rhetorical techniques, but I don't really feel like they are um, discussing in good faith. Uh, and man, Socrates just keeps going on, and he will do this over and over and over. It'll be a list. Um, he'll say at least three things and make you say yes until he finally gets to his point. And what point is he even going? It feels like he's just sort of taking you out to sea, deliberately kind of knocking you off balance, confusing the reader. What are you even talking about? So that by the time he finally does make a point, you're going to be so relieved and so, just exhausted that you will comply. Um, all right. Oh, let's keep plowing through. Another certainly, yes, one of the many bobbleheads that we're going to be hearing in this. And when you want to keep a shield or a lyre and do not use them, you would say that justice is useful, but when you want to use them, then the art of the soldier or the musician. Certainly. And so, of all other things, justice is useful when they are useless, and useless when they are useful. That is the inference. Then justice is not good for much, but let us consider this further point. Is not he who can best strike a blow in a boxing match or in any kind of fighting best able to ward off a blow? Certainly. And is he who is most skillful in preventing or escaping from a disease is best able to create one? Well, I think their ideas of medicine were archaic. And is he the best guard of a camp who is best able to steal a march upon the enemy? Certainly. Then he who is a good keeper of anything is also a good thief. That, I suppose, is to be inferred. Then, if the just man is good at keeping money, he is good at stealing it. That is implied in the argument. Then, after all, the just man has turned out to be a thief. And this is a lesson which I suspect you must have learnt out of Homer, for he, speaking of Autolycus, the maternal grandfather of Odysseus, who is a favorite of his, affirms that he was excellent above all men in theft and perjury. And so, you and Homer and Simonides are agreed that justice is an art of theft, to be practiced, however, for the good of friends and for the harm of enemies. That was what you were saying. No, certainly not that, though I do not know what I did say, but I still stand by the latter words. Well, I sounds like Plato really he got his thing. He completely confused the person that they're talking to, twisted their words into something else, and now it's just a great big mess. Well, hopefully we're going somewhere important, but I doubt it. Um, well, there is another question. By friends and enemies, do we mean those who are so really or only in seeming? I gotta stop again. So it's almost like Socrates slash Plato is kind of creating his own straw man. He's sort of leading the other people into into a very confused belief with all these rhetorical questions and saying, aha, but now that doesn't make sense. Well, of course it doesn't make sense. We've meandered all of this random stuff to get here. It's kind of, it does feel a little manipulative, and Polemarchus does not seem to be a very strong opponent. I have a feeling he's just getting led around by the nose by Socrates, not pushing back at all, nodding his head yes to everything he says. So nor does it seem that Polemarchus has a really clear grasp on what he thinks justice is, and I guess that's the problem is his what Polemarchus thinks justice is just what Socrates has been leading him to. He didn't start with really any kind of good rebuttal or that. But let us press on. Surely, he said, a man may be expected to love those whom he thinks is good and to hate those whom he thinks is evil. Yes, but do not persons often err about good and evil? Many who are not good seem to be so, and conversely, this is true. Then to them the good will be enemies, and the evil their friends. True, and in that case they will be right in doing good to the evil and evil to the good, clearly. But the good are just and would not do an injustice. True. Then according to your argument, it is just to injure those who do no wrong. Nay, Socrates, the doctrine is immoral. It is like this again. Polemarchus is just so obsequious. It's like everything Socrates says. Oh yes, I agree. And until you, of course, he tricks you into saying something ridiculous. Polemarchus is just. It would have been nice to maybe have somebody a little stronger, a little more willpower, a little more clever. But I guess you got to work with what you have. Though, honestly, I mean, this isn't real. This is Plato writing about another character talking to people about a conversation he had. So he can be whatever he wants. He can make his opponents as dumb as he likes to. And let me tell you, they are pretty dumb. Let's get back to this mess. Then I suppose that we ought to do good to the just and harm to the unjust. I like that better. But see the consequence. Many a man who is ignorant of human nature has friends who are bad friends. And in that case, he ought to do harm to them. And he has good enemies whom he ought to benefit. But if so, we shall be saying the very opposite of that which we affirm to be the meaning of Simonides. Oh my gosh, Socrates, we need to be good to the good and bad to the bad, but sometimes we make mistakes. I mean, yes, things are complicated. I think there's always exceptions, but okay, good, great. Very true, he said, and I think that we had better correct an error into which we seem to have fallen in the use of the words friend and enemy. Ah, Polemarchus, finally starting to push back. What was the error, Polemarchus? I asked. We assume that he is a friend who seems to be, or who is thought good. How is the error to be corrected? We should rather say that he is a friend who is, as well as seems good, and that he who seems only and is not good only seems to be and is not a friend, and of an enemy the same may be said. You would argue that the good are our friends and the bad are our enemies. Yes. And instead of simply saying, let's get this up a little so you can read along at home. and make sure that I'm not making any mistakes. I don't want to misrepresent it. And instead of simply saying, as we did at first, that it is just to do good to our friends and harm to our enemies, we should further say it is just to do good to our friends when they are good and harm to our enemies when they are evil. Yes, that appears to me to be the truth. But ought the just to injure anyone at all? Undoubtedly, He ought to injure those who are both wicked and his enemies. When horses are injured, are they improved or deteriorated? Oh, we're going to get one of these rhetorical question. The latter, deteriorated, that is to say, in the good qualities of horses, not of dogs. Yes, of horses. And dogs are deteriorated in the good quality of dogs, and not of horses, of course. And will not men who are injured be deteriorated? Okay. Be deteriorated in that which is the proper virtue of man? Certainly. And that human virtue is justice, to be sure. Then men who are injured are of necessity made unjust. That is the result. But can the musician, by his art, make men unmusical? I mean, I, as a musician, I've listened to plenty of musicians that make me just want to throw my instruments away. So maybe, but all right, I get where he's going with this. So certainly not. Or the horseman by his art make them bad horsemen. Impossible. And can the just by justice make men unjust, or speaking generally, can the good by virtue make them bad? Assuredly not. I mean, there's exceptions. I mean, a criminal is punished, causing his son to grow up poor and without a father, making him turn to crime. There you go. A just person made someone unjust. But Polemarchus does not push back. He nods in agreement, just completely being bulldozed by Socrates. Assuredly not. Any more than heat can produce cold, it cannot, or drought moisture, certainly not, nor can the good harm anyone. All right, hold on a second. I thought the good cause harm to enemies, or are the good and the just different? Does that mean they're good? So I guess I'm not sure. I guess you know what, Socrates, you're doing it. Now I'm confused. I what where are you even going with this? I think we're gonna be knocked off our feet for a while, and we need to wait. We need to wait for the point, but we're getting pummeled. We're getting a lot of body blows here, and then eventually, there's gonna be kaboom. All right. And the just is the good, certainly. And then to injure a friend or anyone else is not the act of a just man, but of the opposite, who is unjust. I think that what you say is quite true, Socrates. Then if a man says that justice consists of the repayment of debts, and that good is the debt which a just man owes to his friends, and evil is the debt which he owes to his enemies, to say this is not wise, for it is not true, if has already been shown the injuring of another can be in no case just. I agree with you, said Polemarchus, which I think is pretty much all he can say. Then you and I are prepared to take up arms against anyone who attributes such a saying to Simonides or Bias or Pittacus or any other wise man or seer. I am quite ready to do battle at your side, you suck up. Shall I tell you who I believe the saying to be? Whose? I believe that Periander or Perdiccas or Xerxes or Ismenias the Theban or some other rich and mighty man who has done a great opinion of his own power was the first to say that justice is doing good to your friends and harm to your enemies. Most true, he said. Uh-oh, am I? There we go. Scrolling here. Yes, I said, but if this definition of justice also breaks down, what other can be offered? Several times in the course of the discussion, Thrasymachus had made an attempt to get the argument into his own hands, and had been put down by the rest of the company, who wanted to hear the end. But when Polemarchus and I had done speaking, there was a pause. He could no longer hold his peace. Gathering himself up, he came at us like a wild beast, seeking to devour us. We were quite panic stricken at the sight of him. Oh my gosh. So now I'm mad. This is his description of Thrasymachus is just that, oh, Thrasymachus is upset. Therefore, he's irrational and wrong headed. You know, he's like a beast. Oh, he frightened us because he's angry because we're being so stupid. Um, I mean, that's you're a jerk, Socrates. Anyhow, Plato. Sorry, I shouldn't be putting these things in Socrates' mouth. And here comes Thrasymachus. Sort of appears to be sort of the opposite of Polemarchus, not really an intellectual equal to the discussion, but he's not agreeable. He's disagreeing. He roared out to the whole company, "What folly, Socrates, has taken possession of you all? And why, silly billies, do you knock under to one another? I say that if you want really to know what justice is, you should not only ask, but answer, and you should not seek honor to yourself from the refutation of an opponent, but have your own answer. For there is many a one who can ask and cannot answer. And now I will not have you say that justice is duty or advantage or profit or gain or interest, for this sort of nonsense will not do for me. I must have clearness and accuracy." I was panic stricken at his words and could not look at him. Without trembling, there was. I should have got some water for this. Woo! Lot of words. Yeah, so where are we? Socrates is clutching his pearls at somebody being upset at this complete display of nonsense. Um, I could not look at him without trembling. Indeed, I believe that if I had not fixed my eye upon him, I should have been struck dumb. And when I saw his fury rising, I looked at him first and was therefore able to reply to him. Oh, so brave, so brave. When somebody isn't just agreeing with you constantly, that you're the victim. "Thrasymachus," I said with a quiver, "don't be hard on us. Polemarchus and I may have been guilty of a little mistake in the argument, but I can assure you that the error was not intentional. If we were seeking for a piece of gold, you would not imagine that we were knocking under to one another and so losing our chance of finding it? And why, when we are seeking for justice, a thing more precious than many pieces of gold, do you say that we are weakly yielding to one another and not doing our utmost to get at the truth? Nay, my good friend, we are most willing and anxious to do so, but the fact is we cannot. If so, you people who know all things should pity us and not be angry with us." Yeah, you know what? I'm not really buying it there. I think you are being a bit disingenuous, and then of course when people get angry at you for doing that, nice. Yeah, well, okay. I think maybe Thrasymachus and I are were kindred spirits because he goes, "How characteristic of Socrates," he replied with a bitter laugh. "That's your ironical style. Did I not foresee, have I not already told you, that whatever he was asked he would refuse to answer, and that try irony or any other shuffle in order he might avoid answering?" Yeah, I think Thrasymachus has the measure of Socrates here. "You are a philosopher, Thrasymachus," I replied, "and well know that if you ask a person what numbers make up 12, taking care to prohibit him whom you ask from answering twice 6, or 3 times 4, or 6 times 2, or 4 times 3, for this sort of nonsense will not do for me, then obviously, if that is your way of putting the question, no one can answer you. But suppose that he were to retort, 'Thrasymachus, what do you mean? If one of those numbers which you interdict be the true answer to the question, am I falsely to say that some other number which is not the right one? Is that your meaning? How would you answer him?' Just as if the two cases were at all alike," he said. "Why should they not be? I replied, and even if they are not, but only appear to be so to the person who is asked, ought he not say what he thinks, whether you and I forbid him or not? I presume then that you are going to make one of the interdicted answers. I dare say that I may, notwithstanding the danger, if upon reflection I approve of any of them. But what if I gave you an answer about justice, other and better, he said, than any of these? What do you deserve to have done to you? Done to me? As becomes the ignorant. I must learn from the wise. That is what I deserve to have done to me. What, and no payment? A pleasant notion. I will pay when I have the money, I replied. But you have Socrates and Glaucon, and you, Thrasymachus, need be under no anxiety about money, for we will all make a contribution for Socrates. Yes, he replied, and then Socrates will do as he always does, refuse to answer himself, but take and pull to pieces the answer of someone else. Yeah. I I love this because I mean, at what point does this just start sounding like a Reddit edge lord and I am very smart arguing with each other. Again, one of the nice things I really like about this is it really does show sort of the universalness of a lot of our petty arguments and things like that. So yeah, it amuses me and I like it. Why, my good friend, I said, how can any one answer who knows and says that he knows just nothing, and who, even if he has some faint notions of his own, is told by a man of authority not to utter them? The natural thing is that the speaker should be someone like yourself who professes to know and can tell what he knows. Will you kindly answer for the edification of the company and of myself? Glaucon and the rest of the company joined in my request, and Thrasymachus, as anyone might see, was in reality eager to speak, for he thought that he had an excellent answer and would distinguish himself. But at first he affected to insist on my answering. At length he consented to begin. Behold, he said, the wisdom of Socrates. He refuses to teach himself and move. He refuses to teach himself and goes about learning of others, to whom he never even says thank you. That I learn from others, I replied, is quite true, but that I am ungrateful I wholly deny. Money I have none, and therefore I pay in praise, which is all I have. And how ready I am to praise anyone who appears to me to speak well, you will very soon find out when you answer, for I expect that you will answer well. That's nice. Listen, then, he said. I proclaim that justice is nothing else than the interest of the stronger. And now why do you not praise me? But of course you won't. And now you know what? And so let's step back a bit. I think we finally got a little something here. In the beginning, I said that my thesis is that uh, Plato believes that might makes right. And now we have Thrasymachus, his foil, basically say that justice is in the interest of the stronger. And maybe now we can get this conversation going. Let's see how Socrates handles this. I mean, clearly Thrasymachus does not believe that's good. I think he's kind of an anarchist. He is an egalitarian, and he's sort of insulting justice by saying it's just authoritarianism. But again, I mean, I think that'll be. Let me first understand you, I replied. Justice, as you say, is the interest of the stronger. What, Thrasymachus, is the meaning of this? You cannot mean to say that because Polydamas, the pancratiast, is stronger than we are, and finds the eating of beef conducive to his bodily strength, that to eat beef is therefore equally for our good, who are weaker than he is, and right and just for us. Following. That's abominable of you, Socrates. You take the words in the sense which is most damaging to the argument. I mean, Yeah, Thrasymachus is not he's not a very strong opponent, is he? I mean, how about uh no, we should not eat beef so that Polydamas can have more. I mean, there's lots of things, but I guess hindsight is 2020. I shouldn't judge him too hard. He's upset listening to this nonsense, just like I am. Not at all, my good sir, I said. I am trying to understand them, and I wish that you would be a little clearer. Well, he said, have you never heard that forms of government differ? There are tyrannies and there are democracies and there are aristocracies. Yes, I know. And the government is the ruling power in each state. Certainly. And the different forms of government make laws democratical, aristocratical, tyrannical, with a view to their several interests. And these laws, which are made by them for their own interests, are the justice which they deliver to their subjects, and him who transgresses them they punish as a breaker of the law and unjust. And that is what I mean when I say that in all states there is a simple principle of justice, which is in the interest of the government. And as the government must be supposed to have power, the only reasonable conclusion is that everywhere there is one principle of justice which is in the interest of the stronger. Huh. I take back what I said about Thrasymachus. That was pretty good. And it sort of kind of it feels like politics hasn't changed in 2400 years either, has it? I could imagine having a conversation like this today. Now I understand you, I said. And whether you are right or not, I will try to discover. But let me remark that in defining justice, you have yourself used the word interest, which you forbade me to use. It is true, however, that in your definition the words of the stronger are added. A small addition, you must allow, he said. Great or small, never mind about that. We must first inquire whether what you are saying is the truth. Now, we are both agreed that justice is interest of some sort, but you go on to say of the stronger about this addition, I am not sure, but I must therefore consider first. Proceed. I will. And first, tell me, do you admit that it is just for subjects to obey their rulers? I do. Oh, seriously, Thrasymachus? You cave? It is just for subjects to obey the rulers? You can't even say, oh, well, I mean, if the um only if the orders are just. But no, he's like, of course, you must obey your rulers. And so yeah, this is not going well. But are the rulers of states absolutely infallible, or are they sometimes liable to err? To be sure, he replied, they are liable to err. Then, in making their laws, they may sometimes make them rightly, and sometimes not. True. Then, when they make them rightly, they make them agreeable to their interest. When they are mistaken, contrary to their interest. Do you admit that? Yes. Oh, no, no, no. Oh my God, Thrasymachus, come on, grow a backbone here. Socrates is just, he's full of it. I mean, a bad, he's now said, oh, if rulers make bad laws, it hurts them. No, when rulers make bad laws, it hurts the people. They're fine. They're fine either way. They're in power. Yeah, boo. I do not like you, Plato. You're kind of a suck up to power. And I think that's kind of what all of this is a lot of flattery to power. But let us continue. And the laws which they make must be obeyed by their subjects, and that is what you call justice, doubtless. Then injustice, according to your argument, is not only obedience to the interest of the stronger, but the reverse. What is that you are saying? He asked. I am only repeating what you are saying, I believe, but let us consider. Have we not admitted that the rulers may be mistaken about their own interest in what they command, and also that to obey them is justice? Has that not been admitted? Yes. Why you admitted that, Thrasymachus? I mean, seriously, you're going to be regretting that. Then you must also have acknowledged justice, not to be for the interest of the stronger, when the rulers unintentionally command things to be done which are to their own injury. For if, as you say, justice is the obedience, which the subject renders to their commands in that case, O wisest of men, is there any escape from the conclusion that the weaker are commanded to do not what is for the interest, but what is for the injury of the stronger? Nothing can be clearer, Socrates, said Polemarchus. Oh, great. Polemarchus is coming back. Lovely. We haven't had anybody agreeing with Socrates for a couple of pages. Yes, said Cleitophon, interposing, if you are allowed to be his witness. But there is no need of any witness, said Polemarchus, for Thrasymachus himself acknowledged that rulers may sometimes command what is not for their own interest, and that for subjects to obey them is justice. Yes, Polemarchus, Thrasymachus said that for subjects to do what was commanded by their rulers is just. Yeah, I don't know why he said that. Guess to make him an easier mark. Yes, Cleitophon, but he also said that justice is the interest of the stronger, and while admitting both these propositions, he further acknowledged that the stronger may command the weaker, who are his subjects, to do what is not for his own interest, whence follows that justice is the injury quite as much as the interest of the stronger. But, said Cleitophon, he meant by the interest of the stronger what the stronger thought to be his interest. This was what the weaker had to do, and this was affirmed by him to be justice. Those were not his words, rejoined Polemarchus. Yes, everybody pile on Thrasymachus now. Never mind, I replied. If he now says that they are, let us accept his statement. Tell me, Thrasymachus, I said, did you mean by justice what the stronger thought to be his interest, whether really so or not? Clearly not, he said. Do you suppose that I call him who is mistaken the stronger at the time when he is mistaken? Yes, I said. My impression was that you did so, when you admitted that the ruler was not infallible but might sometimes be mistaken. You argue like an informer, Socrates. Do you mean, for example, that he who is mistaken about the sick is a physician, in that he is mistaken, or that he who errs in arithmetic or grammar is an arithmetician or a grammarian at the time when he is making the mistake in respect of the mistake? True, we say that the physician or arithmetician or grammarian has made a mistake, but this is only a way of speaking, for the fact is neither the grammarian nor any other person of skill ever makes a mistake insofar as he is what his name implies. None of them err unless their skills fail them, and then they cease to be skilled artists. No artist or sage or ruler errs at the time when he is what his name implies. Okay, let's unpack some of this. Is a musician no longer a musician if they hit a bad note? I can't be more certain that's not true. I, all musicians, all right, anyone make mistakes. No one is perfect. Everyone is fallible. So the idea of, and what's cool as a musician is that if you're playing and you make a mistake and you see a real pro at it, and maybe you know this song note for note, you've been practicing it, and you're at a concert and there's a master musician there and they're playing their instrument. You're so clever. You hear a mistake that nobody else hears because the maestro, the master, it's like who's the happy painter. There are no mistakes, only happy accidents. You take that note and then you make it something. You make it what you want. One hack thing I do is if I play like a phrase wrong, I'll play it wrong again. That way it looks like that was intentional. That was artistic. So this whole logic of, oh no, experts aren't experts if they make a mistake. I no. Absolutely not. I am not okay with that. But of course, if I could reach through the page and shake Thrasymachus a little, maybe we'd get somewhere. But, oh well. Though he is commonly said to err, and I adopted the common mode of speaking, but to be perfectly accurate, since you are such a lover of accuracy, we should say that the ruler, insofar as he is a ruler, is unerring. And, being unerring, always commands that which is for his own interest. Subject is required to execute his commands, and therefore, as I said at first, and now repeat, justice is the interest of the stronger. Indeed, Thrasymachus, and do I really appear to you to argue like an informer? Certainly, he replied. And do you suppose that I ask these questions with any design of injuring you in the argument? Nay, he replied, suppose is not the right word. I know it, but you will be found out, and by sheer force of argument, you will never prevail. I again, I mean, we're kind of Plato is sort of showing Thrasymachus is as hurt, as being emotional, being defensive. And this is a really good rhetorical technique where you have one person calm and, placid. They're simply asking questions. And then another person passionate, maybe even angry. And it reflects poorly on them. A, a great rhetorical technique, admitted. Uh, is the person who is calm always right and the person who is angry always wrong? No. In fact, it's irrelevant. So again, a lot of this, when I see a lot of uh, this Plato Republic Book One, people talking about what a great philosopher he is. I mean, again, philosophy and rhetoric, there is a lot of overlap, and I think we need to understand that maybe we should consider this a book of rhetoric and not a book of thinking philosophy. But, you know, they're all under control of Plato's pen, so they're going to do what he wants, and clearly quite effective. Uh, I shall not make the attempt, my dear man, but to avoid any misunderstanding occurring between us in future, let me ask, in what sense do you speak of a ruler or stronger whose interest, as you were saying, he being the superior, it is just that the inferior should execute? Is he a ruler in the popular or in the strict sense of the term? In the strictest of all senses, he says. And now, cheat and play the informer if you can. I ask no quarter at your hands, but you never will be able, never. And do you imagine, I said, that I am such a madman as to try and cheat, Thrasymachus? I might as well shave a lion. Why, he said, you made the attempt a minute ago and you failed. Enough, I said, of these civilities. It will be better that I should ask you a question. Is the physician, taken in that strict sense of which you are speaking, a healer of the sick or a maker of money? Remember that I am now speaking of the true physician, a healer of the sick. And the pilot, that is to say, the true pilot, is he a captain of sailors or a mere sailor? A captain of sailors. The circumstance that he sails in the ship is not to be taken into account. Neither is he to be called a sailor. The name pilot by which he is distinguished has nothing to do with sailing, that is significant of his skill and his authority over the sailors. Very true, he said. Now, I said, has every art an interest? Certainly, for which the art has to consider and provide. Yes, that is the aim of art, and the interest of any art is the perfection of it, this and nothing else. What do you mean? I mean, what I may illustrate negatively by the example, body. Suppose you were to ask me whether the body is self-sufficing or has wants, I should reply, certainly the body has wants, for the body may be ill and require to be cured, and therefore interests to which the art of medicine ministers. And this is the origin and intention of medicine, as you will acknowledge. Am I not right? Quite right, he replied. But is the art of medicine or any other art faulty or deficient in any quality In the same way that the eye may be deficient in sight or the ear fail of hearing, and therefore requires another art to provide for the interests of seeing and hearing. As art in itself, I say, any similar liability to fault or defect? And does every art require another supplementary art to provide for its interests, and that another and another without end? Or have the arts to look only after their own interests? Or have they no need either of themselves or of another, having no faults or defects? They have no need to correct them, either by the exercise of their own art or by any other. They have only to consider the interest of their subject matter. For every art remains pure and faultless while remaining true. That is to say, while perfect and unimpaired. Take the words in your precise sense and tell me whether I am not right. Yes, clearly. Clearly to you, Thrasymachus. I don't know where he's going with this thing. Then medicine does not consider the interest of medicine, but the interest of the body. True, he says. This is, I mean, is this a Socratic method where he basically you ask three questions that have to be answered in a certain way? Is that and then after the third question you just draw some nonsense irrelevant conclusion? Again, it is wearing me down, so it does have an effect. True, he says. Nor does the art of horsemanship consider the interests of the art of horsemanship, but the interests of the horse. Neither do any other arts care for themselves, for they have no needs. They care only that for which is the subject of their art. True, he said. But surely, Thrasymachus, the arts are the superiors and rulers of their own subjects. To this he assented with a good deal of reluctance. Oh, you have no spine, Thrasymachus. Then I said, no science or art considers or enjoins the interest of the stronger or superior, but only the interest of the subject and weaker. He made an attempt to contest this proposition, but finally acquiesced. Oh, destroyed with facts and logic. I seriously, I'm just not buying it. I mean, that was not convincing at all. But Thrasymachus, I guess was swayed. Then, I continued, no physician, insofar as he is a physician, considers his own good in what he perceives, but the good of his patient. For the true physician is also a ruler, having the human body as a subject, and is not merely a money maker. That has been admitted. Yes, and the pilot likewise, in the strict sense of the term, is a ruler of sailors, and not a mere sailor. That has been admitted. And such a pilot and ruler will provide and prescribe for the interest of the sailor who is under him, and not for his own or the ruler's interest. Yeah, yeah, are you hearing it now? Your rulers are only doing what's in your best interest. And Thrasymachus gave a reluctant yes. Having your shills uh, right there and talking with them and getting them to agree with the just the worst things. Again, effective rhetoric. Um, Then said Thrasymachus, there is no one in any rule who, insofar as he is a ruler, considers or enjoins what is for his own interest, but always what is for the interest of his subject or suitable to his art. To that he looks, and that alone he considers in everything which he says and does. And, what are we, about halfway through? Let's see. So, oh my gosh, I had a bunch of thoughts here that, as you can see, this is where Socrates finally comes out and pretty much gives his thesis statement. And it is what I mentioned at the beginning. Um, there's No one in any rule, insofar as he is a ruler, considers or enjoins what is for his own interest, but always what is for the interest of his subject or suit. Well, we could just end it there. That would be a better quote. And this is not taken out of context. I think this is the gem. This is really what Plato is trying to say, and it is kind of a might makes right. If you think your ruler is doing bad things for you, it is you who is bad. They have your best interest at heart. Ah, so I just have a lot of. All right, I see. All right, I see what I'm doing here. I wanted to do I wanted to do a little parody of a parody of this. So here's what I wrote. I said, so let me attempt to take a page out of Plato's Book of Rhetoric and present it in a way consistent with the narrative. I'll choose the character I could put my words into as Aristotle, which is actually, yeah, Plato's student who went on to contradict, a lot of what Plato taught. So now here we go. Here's my version of Plato's rhetoric. Aristotle calmly and confidently asked, "Are there not criminal men who attack others weaker than themselves in order to take their belongings?" "I cannot deny the existence of armed robbers," admitted Socrates. See, I'm going to make Socrates the bobblehead in my story. "And can we not say that those muggers held power over their victims? They would have to, otherwise their larceny would be unsuccessful," Socrates reasoned. "And do you not know of men who are rough with prostitutes or other vulnerable people and deliberately inflict pain for the enjoyment or the feeling of control? I am familiar with those types of perverts. And would you say they rule over those with less power? Your logic is sound, and I cannot contradict it, Aristotle. And are you not familiar from the news of current events and histories that armies may sometimes pillage conquered peoples, murdering, and sexually assaulting any they desire? The history books are replete with accounts of this, yes. And would you say that those soldiers who wielded absolute power over the conquered civilians acted in the interest of their subjects?" Reluctantly, Socrates crumbled before the unquestionable disproof of his erroneous conclusion that rulers only act in their subjects' best interest. "I was a fool," he exclaimed, and clearly the lack of intellectual and ethical capacity to continue to explore the nature of justice. "I will forever shut up about it and leave that work to my betters and order my most pompous student, Plato, to do the same." That was fun. You know what? I think Plato's got something going here. I really enjoyed that. But I don't know if it was constructive. I don't know if it got us any closer to a reasonable conclusion. But but it was fun. All right, that's about halfway through, and I've been talking for about an hour and a half. So I am going to do the second half of book two next Wednesday evening. And if this is of interest to you, please join me. Until next time, care for yourselves and make good decisions.